Protect your home anytime from anywhere with Ring Alarm. For a special offer, go to ring.com/cold. It's the perfect way to start your Ring experience. Ring Alarm is a powerful, affordable home security system that you can easily install yourself. And it works seamlessly with other Ring products in one simple app. For me, it provides peace of mind on days when I work at the office and days when I work from home. It was super easy to set up, and the kit came with everything I could possibly need. I put a contact sensor on every possible entry point to my home, like first-floor windows and doors. There's even a setting for the motion detector to ignore my pets, so it only detects intruders and doesn't go off every time they jump on the couch. Again, go to ring.com/cold for a special offer on a Ring Alarm security kit today. You can build a system that's right for your home and have it up and running in minutes. That's ring.com/cold. ring.com/cold.
I'm sitting in the airport. It's my first flight since COVID lockdowns, and I'm watching that endless cable news loop on the overhead monitors. Bored. So I pull out my phone, fire up Best Fiends, and play through a few levels. Best Fiends is a free-to-download casual puzzle game. It's a great way to fill those idle minutes, or, if you want, hours. As you level up, you unlock new characters, these fiends, and develop new strategies to blast through the levels. But no matter how fast I advance, it seems like there's always more to do, which is part of the fun. It can be hard to put down, like careful or you'll miss your flight hard, because next I know they're calling for boarding. Download the 5-star rated puzzle game Best Fiends free today on the App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends.
This podcast includes discussions of rape, sexual assault, and other violent crimes, including murder. Listener discretion is advised. You should also know that help is available 24/7 if you or someone close to you has experienced rape or any other form of sexual abuse. In the United States, you can go to RAINN.org. That's the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network website at RAINN.org. You can also call 800-656-HOPE to connect with free resources. No one needs suffer in silence. You are not alone.
Hi, I'm Amy Donaldson.
And I'm Cheryl Worsley, and this is Talking Cold.
This is the podcast that seeks to delve into the issues raised by the Cold podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing episode 10. So if you haven't already listened to episode 10 of Cold, please go to amazon.com/cold podcast, listen, and then hurry back to us.
I'm really excited to talk with our guest today. It's Jason Hermes with Utah Search Dogs. I wanted to talk with Jason because investigators searched for Joyce 5 different times and multiple times with dogs. So I wanted to know how effective dogs can be in a search. Before we dive into that, Jason, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? What got you into training dogs?
Sure. I guess what got me into training dogs would be my mother. She always had dogs, and she's done many different disciplines, from obedience to agility to scent work. And I was always a training partner. She'd drag me out and make me go lay tracks, and then the dog would track me. So I've been brought up around dogs my whole life. And then...
Wait a minute, back up. Your mom would train the dog to track you?
Well, she was using me as a tracking dummy, yes.
I'm sure that, you're not a dummy or anything. That wasn't it, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was my first exposure to tracking type work, which led into search and rescue type work, which invariably leads into cadaver work, unfortunately.
I do want to point out, I don't know the exact parameters of it, but dogs are their sense of smell is I don't remember how many times better than a human's.
Yeah, put me on the spot.
Yeah, but I mean,
I can make something up.
No,
what's really hard about that is I don't think we really know how good their noses are. I've heard anywhere from 100,000 times better to 10 million times better than a human scent. I've heard things say that when we smell baking of cookies, the dogs can smell the eggs, the flour, the sugar, and everything else. They've tried to quantify just what it is the dogs are picking up on, but I don't think there's really a clear answer. There's lots of theories out there. Interesting enough, my dog's name is Mozzie. When I was training Mozzie, I didn't start off doing cadaver work. We actually started off doing live find work. And so we would present to him a particular scent of a person off of an article, a glove, a hat, whatever it is. And he would follow that scent and track that person till ultimately the destination at the end. And every time I work with my dog, I go, wow, that's incredible that he did that.
So you mentioned Mozzie can track off an article of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Can Mozzie also detect a cadaver?
Yes.
Or is it different dogs do different functions?
Yes, to that as well. In search and rescue, there's primarily two groups of working dogs. There's live find dogs, and then there's cadaver dogs. And within those two groups, there's also other areas that the dogs could work in. So for instance, live find, you could have just a general wilderness search where the dog is looking for any human scent. If you didn't have an article or you don't have a track that you could follow, it's just going to find a human and then come and get the handler and take them back. Or in the case of missing persons or whatever, if they come across a cadaver, they're trained to recognize that scent. So you don't really have to present a cadaver sample to your dog to go.
Well, that would be hard, right? Because and let me clarify, to go look for a cadaver, because you actually train on cadaver samples to get your dog to that point. For instance, I have my kids' teeth from when they were little and they'd fall out. You hold on to those things. Those are training aids. Placenta is training aid. We also get donations from funeral homes or consent from hospitals. We have hip bones and different various samples. But what intrigues me about the cadaver work is if you think about introducing your dog to a scent and teaching them what that is, well, in the case of cadaver, that scent's always changing. So because of decomposition?
Because of decomposition. Tell me the difference between someone who just got buried by, say, an avalanche and someone who's been under the snow for 6 months in the same avalanche. Will they be at the same rate? Well, probably not. The cold will slow down the decomp, but it'll be changing. Or if somebody has drowned, the difference between a drowning victim after a day versus 2 weeks or out in the sunshine.
You just touched on something, but that is decomposition. This case is a really old case. It's from the mid 80s. How do you train for that? And can the dog still detect someone who's been missing that long?
You know, that is an amazing question to think about because the answer is yes. We have Utah Search Dogs has a pretty good working relationship with the anthropology department out in Texas. They have out there a full body farm, and they place these bodies out in nature and watch them over a period of time and see what happens to them naturally and how they decompose, and they study it. And as part of that, they allow dog team professionals to come in and train at their facility. And they have some very talented instructors there as well. And so part of that exposure is they have some green cemeteries that are hundreds of years old, and dogs can pick up and hit on the green graves. So when I say green,
unmarked,
not unmarked, unprocessed with formaldehyde, just a natural burial.
So I have like a million questions, but I guess when you're talking about looking for cadavers, what does a dog do when it thinks it's found what the handler is looking for?
So there's a couple of different stages we look for when we're watching our dogs. If I've given my dog a command to look for cadaver, the command I use is toad. Why toad? It's a word I remember from my 7th grade German class. It means dead. When you're out in public working with your animals, so you just say, hey, go find the dead guy. We're trying to be somewhat sympathetic to the situation we might be in. So I give the dog the command toad. Anyone else? Doesn't mean anything to him. The dog knows what he should be doing. So he'll start searching a pattern at that point. And depending on the room, if it's indoors, he'll circle one way. If it's outside, he goes a little nuts for a while, just hasty search, running around. And then we look, as handlers, we look for something we call change of behavior. As he's going around checking things out, if you see a subtle head snap or the dog stutter steps and catches an interest, it's just, we start, that kind of alerts us that, oh, the dog now has some interest in something. And then we'll watch the dog work. And Mozzie, he's a shorter dog. He's a mini Australian Shepherd. He's about 35 pounds. If I am there and he can see me and he finds the scent that he's after, the training aid, if in the case of training, or a body, and he will down and he will bark at me. If he can't see me, if I'm not there, if we're out in the wilderness and he's out of sight, he'll come running back to me and down at my feet, and then I'll say, show me, and he'll take me back to what he found.
So how confident are you that he actually found what he's looking for if you can't see it? It's like bodily fluids I'm thinking of. Like, what if it's not visible to you?
So we spend a lot of time proofing our dogs. And part of proofing is having teammates set up problems with training aids to where we don't know as handlers where they're hidden, and we work the dogs with a teammate watching, and then they're able to confirm or say, no, your dog's trying to trick you out of a treat. Because dogs, they're smart, and sometimes they're characters, and sometimes they'll want to cheat if you let them. But most of the time, the service dogs do their job and do it really well. And I think it comes down to how much time is spent with training them and making sure they're doing what you're asking of them.
How long does it take to train a dog to do something like that? Are you talking years?
Well, my pup's 7 years old.
Okay.
And we still train every week. So yes, years.
That never ends.
It never ends. We're always looking at ways to work better with our dogs and be better handlers and read the animals better.
I have a question for you, and it's with regards to specifically mountainous searches, because that is the area where it is believed that Joyce Yost is. What are the biggest challenges in relation to mountain searches?
Mountain searches also would imply wilderness. And so bad things tend to happen to bodies left out in the elements in the wilderness, such as scavengers and other animals scattering the remains and taking them to various different places. And therefore the amount of concentration of tissue that could be decomposed is now diluted. And that dilution becomes a factor or a problem.
Yeah, but if you can find your son's teeth, and it's just teeth, dissipation and scattering of the remains still is not an insurmountable thing, I would presume.
It's not insurmountable, but you have to remember that the dog can only smell as far as the end of its nose. Whatever the compounds are, whatever the scent carrying item is, still has to enter the dog's nose, go into the membrane, and be processed by the brain. If you're not close to that, the dog can't magically say, oh, teeth over there, 200 yards, let's go get them. You have to get it close enough.
He has to be right on it, basically.
Yeah.
Do you know, do you have any idea how deep your dog could, or how deep has he in the past signaled at finding something?
I
mean, I imagine once you get down like a foot in the dirt, people are starting to wonder whether or not your dog is wrong.
Well, a foot's not a big deal. That's pretty easy.
It feels like a big deal.
Well, that's pretty easy for the dogs.
Okay.
When we're doing certifications with our dogs.
So what looks to be hard? When do you start having doubts? Like how deep would the dig have to go?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it. So
Okay.
I'll have to give that some thought and get back to you on that one.
You have faith in your dog, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. There are times where, sometimes dogs can be, royal pains. And there are times where he's not as working as good as other times, but when he tells me something, I believe him.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wondered, because I thought like other people might look at it who don't work with dogs and say, well, he's mistaken. Your dog is mistaken. There's not anything here. We can't see it. And I just wondered like how confident as a handler you would be about like saying, no, he hit something. I don't know what it is. Because he couldn't tell you it's saliva, it's blood, or
yeah,
you know
and
what
saliva
I mean?
is probably a very poor example, but blood and other tissues and decomp is more. We did a search recently at a campground up in Box Elder County, and it was a cold case, and somebody had some information that they said that something bad happened in that campground, and we took out several dogs, and we had about, if I remember right, we had 6 out of 8 dogs all indicate in the same area, and the county sheriff at that time worked with us, and they came out and they started delayering the area. Well,
What is that?
delayering,
Yes.
kind of like picture digging up a fossil.
So it's kind of like an archaeological dig in that they're marking where they're looking and how they
Filtering
remove
out.
the dirt. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're trying to look for, whatever evidence they might be able to find. In this particular case, they dug and they worked, and they weren't able to find anything to confirm what the dogs had indicated. So does that mean there was something there or something not there? The organic compounds are, again, pretty complex. It could have been as simple as a year earlier, somebody cut their hand and bled in the area, and there's something in the soil, and we can't see it as humans, but the dog can pick it up. For 6 of 8 dogs to indicate that something was there, something was there. We couldn't confirm that. It's always much easier when your dog indicates on a full body, because now we
You
both
have
can see
at
it.
least something to find.
Yeah.
Mozzie's only 7 years old, you say. Tell me about a time when he successfully found something. Like, has he been on a search and rescue, or a real one, or has he found a body? Tell me about a time he's had success.
Do you want to hear the gory one or the happy one?
Both. I want to hear them both.
Okay, I'll start with the happy one because it's one of my favorite stories. A few years ago, I had a neighbor mother call up and say, "My autistic son is missing. He has been gone for 7 hours. We can't find him. Can you bring your dog?" And I said, "Yes, I'll bring him over." At that point, the sheriff was already over at the home, and he was in charge of the search for this young man. And so I took the dog and I just circled the house, and we were able to track over to a neighbor's house. And so I went back and I told the sheriff, I says, this boy did not wander off. I said, he's visited the neighbor's house, but he hasn't gone past that. And the sheriff said, "Well, the house has been searched." And I said, "Yeah, let's take the dog in." And so I took the dog in and started off in the basement, and he ran around and sniffed a whole bunch and didn't find him. Came up to the main floor, was running down the hall, and then this change of behavior happens that we were talking about. He immediately had a head check, turned around, went back, and put his nose down at the bottom of a closet on the floor. And we opened the door, and they turned around the corner behind the vacuum was this young man sleeping. And his parents said, "There's no way he's climbed in that closet. He's claustrophobic." But there he wasn't. And so the consequences were small had we not found him, because he would eventually been found. Mm-hmm. But, for 7 hours of
worry,
terror for that mother.
I was going to say, you saved mom another couple hours of worry, right?
Yeah. So that was the happy one. We've had a couple of other ones where we've been out on cadaver work that not as the outcome. Well, it's cadaver work. Me and my couple of my teammates were called down to Wilson Arch near Moab, Utah, to go search for a man that had been missing for a little over just a little under 2 weeks. It's about 9-10 days. And we arrived down there early in the morning, and the sheriff says, okay, we've searched all these areas. We want you to go out and search this West Desert area. And at that time, we insisted or asked if we could start his vehicle. And the sheriff had gotten a Slim Jim to open a lock, to unlock it so we could get a scent article. But before he could even get the vehicle open, my dog had circled the truck and had taken off kind of in a northeast direction away from his truck, all voluntary. And I'm watching my dog and I'm going, oh, well, he's this way. So I asked the sheriff, I said, have you guys searched over here? And he says, yeah, we've combed that with a posse and this other. And I said, well, look, I think your subject's this way because of what my dog's doing. And so that we began the search, and within 20, 30 feet, getting away from the truck, the dog went the exact same direction again. He went down into a little ravine, and he showed a huge change in behavior. Again, he's not going to indicate yet because we weren't at the body. It's just the change of behavior is saying, something's got my attention. His nose is up in the air. He's looking around. We continued to work around, and as we came around the bend, it was evident we were going to find this gentleman because at that point we probably didn't need the dogs anymore. But so within 45 minutes of arriving in the parking lot, we were able to locate this person that had been missing for 9-10 days, and that area had been quote unquote scoured by several people out looking, posses and others looking for him. So,
how frequent does that happen for you? Not necessarily cadavers, but how frequently does your dog help in a search or a recovery?
Well, I would like to say every time we're called out, the dogs help. And,
right, but successful.
Well, and
either finding someone or finding their remains.
Yeah, and I was just going to qualify that piece because oftentimes we work under the direction of the law enforcement agency on scene, and so they might have an agenda for us, and so we might be just going and clearing an area and verifying that they're not over there. So every time we're called out, I would like to think we're useful. Mm-hmm. Every time we're called out, we do not find a person.
What is the oldest remains or heaviest decomposition your dog has found?
My dog specifically?
Either Mozzie or another dog of yours?
Yeah, my dog, 9 days.
9 days.
Yeah.
That one that case you mentioned.
Yeah. Now, training aids are much older. We have a cranium that is 56 years old. We can hide that, and he can find that, no problem.
And he's found that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And there are other training aids. What's tricky about training aids, in my mind, is as careful as we are how we handle it. You know, you put the rubber gloves on, you keep it separated from things. I can't help but think that some essence of the people are getting on the training aids when you're out placing them. So is he finding a 65-year-old cranium, or is he tracking the person who placed the cranium and then finding the cranium?
Tricky.
Yeah, so these are things we have to ask ourselves as we're training our animals, saying, what is he really doing? Is he finding the really old bones, or is he finding the person who hid the really old bones?
Well, this is why the place in Texas is so important, because they leave those remains there. They're not moving them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're in various states, and they're caged off. It's done very professional. And that, you're exactly right. You can then take your dog into an area they've never been before. There's no bias one way or another by whoever's planted, quote unquote, the training aids. They are full bodies in various states of decomp that the dogs are able to train on. So you're right, that's a valuable tool.
What about other dogs? What's the oldest that you've seen found?
We've had a couple of my teammates have found some clandestine graves that dated to the turn of the century. So quite old.
Wow.
When the dogs indicated on those graves. I have not had the opportunity to take my dog on and introduce those smells to him yet. So I'm unsure what he would do there. But once the dogs have been trained for that, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to indicate on something, 100 years old.
Wow.
Do you know, have off the top of your head, how many searches you've been on, or how often you go out? Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I really don't know. Probably 4 or 5 searches, 6 searches a year, 7 years. So maybe 35, 40 searches.
It's all volunteer, correct?
Yes. Utah Search Dogs is all volunteer.
So you're not getting paid for these searches?
Correct.
Why do you do it?
Well, that's kind of interesting. We're a warped bunch of people, I think. I initially started getting into it because I had a dog with high drive that needed a job, and I recognized something that he was good at, and so I started training more into it. And then, once you spend the time training your dog, and it just becomes it's rewarding to go out and serve. It's kind of hard to verbalize, and somewhat dark to say. Some of the funnest times are out on a search with your dog. It's sad for somebody else, but the dog loves the work. I like being with him. So I don't know. Is
that's great? No, you get a payday, like you help the neighbor lady find her son.
that was incredible.
And the website is utahsearchdogs.org.
Yeah. We're also on Facebook. That's probably the more current information.
And the same, Utah Search Dogs on Facebook.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really fascinating.
You're welcome anytime.
We're going to take a break, but when we get back, you won't want to miss Big Moments.
Hulu presents their new original series, 9 Perfect Strangers. Based on the New York Times bestseller, 9 Perfect Strangers takes place at Tranquillum. As the healing begins, the guests begin to doubt the retreat's unconventional methods, including a mega dose of reality through the controversial world of microdosing, secretly administered via the guests' daily smoothies. Nicole Kidman stars as Masha, the enigmatic leader of the resort, and Melissa McCarthy co-stars as Frances, a down-on-her-luck novelist in need of some rejuvenation. Watch 9 Perfect Strangers now on Hulu, with new episodes every Wednesday. This episode is supported by Home Chef. Home Chef offers delicious, exciting meals anyone can cook, delivered right to your door. New recipes rotate weekly, so there's a wide variety of options. They offer classic meal kits, 15-minute meals, and oven-ready or microwave recipes that save time and effort in the kitchen. For $90 off your first month, use promo code WONDERY at homechef.com. That's the equivalent of 10 free meals. Go to homechef.com for $90 off with code WONDERY.
Did you know that 3 out of 4 people are dehydrated and they don't even know it? That's wild to me. So I've been drinking Liquid IV. It's the fastest, most efficient way to stay hydrated. In fact, every serving can provide 2 to 3 times faster and more efficient hydration than water alone. And check this out. Right now, they're running an incredible sale during Labor Day weekend. You can get 30% off their entire site today through Monday, September 6th. Their strawberry, watermelon, and lemon lime flavors are outstanding, and it's packed with 5 essential vitamins, which is one of my favorite things about it. Visit liquidiv.com and enter code WONDERY for 30% off to feel better, faster. That's code WONDERY for 30% off at liquidiv.com. Offer ends Monday, September 6th at midnight.
Welcome back. We've reached the part of the show where we talk about the big moments, the things that stuck out to us in the last episode of Cold. Let's take a listen to this first one.
In the days following Doug's sentencing, Terry Carpenter received a tip from a woman who suggested Doug might have buried Joyce in concrete along Utah State Route 193. That's the highway that runs along the southern edge of Hill Air Force Base. The road on which the cement plant where Doug worked still sits today. The tip didn't go anywhere at the time in '93, and the woman who provided the tip is no longer alive, so I can't go ask her about it. But I recently spoke to the man who gave Doug the job driving the cement truck. He told me about a place where all the drivers used to dump their excess cement back in the day, a spot along State Route 193. It's a place Doug would have known about and had access to even after losing the job.
Okay, so it's yet another place
Yeah.
that Joyce Yost's body might be.
So what
it's-
was your gut reaction to this?
My gut reaction was exasperation. I'm frustrated because where is she then? And if what he told Rhonda was a lie, then no one really knows except him.
Yeah, I guess I did feel that like, oh, not another theory, right? Feeling that overwhelmed feeling. But I also just didn't, I kind of dismissed it because I feel like if there was one place he felt safe to say anything true, it would be with Rhonda. And in that panicky, she's helping him get rid of the car. She's helping him burn clothes. I just have trouble. Like, I don't think he told her the whole truth and about every detail, but that's the one thing I kind of was like, what, but why would he lie about that?
But
I don't
you gotta
know.
wonder about this tip. Where did this
Where'd it
tip
come
from?
Yeah.
Way back when. Dave actually spoke with this guy and this is a plausible, it could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of, you've got the cement theory. You've got Doug taking them in the Snow Basin area to search, which is where he's led them to do all of the searches. And then you've got Kazi, where he told Rhonda she was. And
you also have the dad's property potentially.
the dad's property. You've got all of these different places, and yet we've got this other theory now.
Now we have a new one near Hill Air Force Base by the cement dump place.
In between where the clothes were burned and where the car was left. So,
and if you're not from the Ogden Valley, you should know these things are very far apart, and they're not. They're like one or two roads into each place, right? There's not like these are not.
They're not accessible easily from different locations.
No, but I think that's why it's overwhelming and confusing. And then you have this thing over in the West Desert, like in the corner next to Nevada, where there's another potential mountain range where, you know, that a prison informant is telling you she's actually buried there.
Well, and you had Jared Briggs in this episode actually reinforced Kazi.
With a different theory, right?
With a different theory, which is yet another one of our clips. Maybe we should play that one.
He said Doug had claimed to have put Joyce's body in a plastic bag, placed the bag in his car, and then driven to Kazi Reservoir. There, at a spot along the reservoir's north arm, he had tied a cinder block to the bag.
And he went down, and he said when he went off the edge of the road, it was so steep that he went right into the water. And he went out as far as he could. He said he swam out a ways, trying to, and he just let it go. And he'd come back, and he had a hell of a time getting up the bank up to the car.
So you've got yet another prison snitch saying that Doug told him that he put her in a bag and put a weight on her and swam around into Kazi Reservoir.
So this one I don't believe because of physics. I think it would be really difficult to swim with a cinder block or any kind of weight, right? You need a boat. I think he's telling people this stuff. I think he's telling lots of lies. So I don't necessarily think the snitch is lying. But I definitely was like, there's no way you could swim with cinder blocks and a body. I mean, anybody who's tried to carry somebody who's asleep or injured, dead weight is really hard to move anyway. But imagine wrapped in plastic with a cinder block. I don't know. Does it seem possible to you?
I don't know. I mean, it's not very plausible. Could you get her down the hill? Well, yes. But could you swim out? I mean, your point about physics is not incorrect. It would be rather difficult. But it also matches kind of what he told Rhonda. He told her, Kazi, up by Kazi. But he told her buried under leaves.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. He's telling all these different little bits and pieces of lies, right? Is it misdirection? Is he just a storyteller? Which one has the kernel of truth?
Actually, one other thing that might be in play here is, I wonder if Doug might be telling different people different things to see what comes back to him in an investigation loop, because then he will know who has ratted on him.
A loyalty
basically.
test.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, I fully believe that happens in prison, that they tell people different things. I mean, it's like if an investigator would release different pieces of information to see what does and doesn't, take hold out there in the rumor mill. I don't see why he wouldn't. But yeah, that's a really good point and a really good reason for him to be lying outside of he's just lying
to
because
protect the
he's
location.
breathing.
Right. Right.
There's a lot of reasons, but I do think having a bunch of theories and having a lot of chaos around it does ensure his secret stays safe until he wants to reveal it.
Okay. Another really big moment in this episode was the moment when Kim and Greg actually go visit Doug Lovell in prison.
I think Kim had some hopes that she was going to find some answers to why he did it, because she asked him that. But I think she left there tortured and worse off for it.
The reason why he had returned 4 months after the rape to take Joyce's life was obvious.
And that's why he did everything, because he had been in prison before. He didn't want to go back.
And yet, here he was, not only in prison, but on death row.
I had to shake his hand through the bars, and I just wish I'd have broken his arm. That's all I can think about from that day. And I know that nothing positive came out of it.
So frustrating time for Kim and Greg.
Yeah, this one was the most heartbreaking moment for me in the episode. And I know I've covered people who've lost a loved one in a violent way, and the person who was responsible for that death, and they tried to talk with them or meet with them. They used to have a program actually that helped train people to have these kinds of meetings, because it can be very, soothing, and it can be a really positive experience if people are going into it for the right reasons. And I will just reiterate, I think I've said this before on this podcast, that no one's going to give you a satisfying reason for why they raped somebody, because the things that the thinking errors, the criminal thinking that occurs there isn't the way normal non-criminal people think, and so it doesn't make any sense. And I can't imagine the power dynamic that exists in that room when it's your loved one that you hope to get information about, and this person has already upended your life and hurt you in really the most significant way I can think of, and now you're handing them back that power by saying, now please give me something else that I need or
but
want.
They're so desperate.
I don't blame them. I would do it.
Closure, to have a resting place for Joyce. I don't blame them for trying either. And how frustrating to come out of that and feel like you didn't get an answer on where she is,
not even that, like understanding any of it. Like I would want to know, I've covered these things in the past. We want to know every detail of the person that we loved. Even if it's painful, we want to know. We want to know what their last moments were like. We want to know, were they scared? Did they say anything? We want to understand that, because we need that connection. That's like a missing piece, and it's a critical piece. We don't know the ending of their story.
Well, and to be clear, we don't know exactly what that was discussed. It may be that he was giving some of those details over, but what we do know is that Kim and Greg left that very unsatisfied and very much convinced that he was not telling them the truth.
Well, that's what Greg said. Kim didn't get the answer she was looking for. She wanted to know why
and
he did it.
And he wanted to break his arm.
But I would take comfort. I don't know if they take comfort from this, but I would take comfort from the idea that I did what I could to get the information I could from my mom. Because
so would you do this?
Yeah, I would, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
would I. I think that I would. I don't.
And
know.
I'd probably be frustrated and sad like Kim.
Yeah.
But I would do it anyway.
Yeah. You'd do everything you could to try to get her.
Yeah.
Get her
because
home.
Why wouldn't you? And to understand what happened to my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the next one, which I think is the biggest moment
of
of episode 10.
to see him get another chance at starting this thing all over again, it kind of made me feel like, like there's no justice here. This guy keeps on going and getting what he wants when he knows he's already testified. He got up on the stand. He told him exactly what he did. He ruined a lot of people's lives. And here you're giving him another chance. It's just not fair.
So Doug Lovell's third try with the Utah Supreme Court gets him a new trial because he gets to withdraw his guilty plea. And this was really frustrating because it feels like a technicality. It's a technicality.
It is a technicality, yeah. But it's a technicality that protects people from entering into something that they don't understand. And so...
But the question is, did he understand?
So I thought that I don't know how you felt, but I felt like the Attorney General's argument that he's a defendant who's been in court before, he's entered plea agreements before, he sort of understands that process, right? But death penalty cases are different. The exchange between the judge and the defendant.
This is called the colloquy.
Yeah, it is different. So when you decide to say, I'm gonna enter into this guilty plea, I'm gonna give up my right to trial. I'm gonna forfeit my right to a jury trial, in exchange for this deal and whatever that is.
Well, and what happened was the law changed just a couple of months before Doug entered this guilty plea, and that's why he was able to withdraw his guilty plea.
Yeah.
Even though there's no question of his guilt.
Yeah. But part of me says, we have the rules there for a reason because we are saying we're going to take this guy's life. Just like when we talked to Mark Moffat last week, and he underscored the reason these rules are in place are because the standard, if you're going to kill people, if the state is going to take someone's life, if that's going to be the highest and greatest penalty we impose on someone, then the standard or the barrier to getting over that has to be significant, because you can't have it just be, oh, whoops, that was, we forgot to do that. Oh, well, right? These are the procedures in place have been tested and debated and utilized, and they've been shown to protect people from a wrongful conviction or from being executed when they shouldn't be.
And I agree that the rules should be followed, and the standard is there for a reason. But in this case, there isn't a question of guilt. This man admits that he did this.
Yeah.
So how can you withdraw your guilty plea and have that feel like justice? It doesn't feel like justice to the family.
Yeah, I see. I understand that, and I think this conversation being fresh in our minds about the death penalty, I think that it's the penalty that's the problem. That's the reason to make it as vigorous and as careful and
as by the book as you can.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks again to Jason Harames from Utah Search Dogs for joining us today for a really fascinating conversation. If you want to support Utah Search Dogs or the work they do, you can find them on Facebook or their website. We will be back next week with more Talking Cold. But before we go, I want to play you one of the voicemails we got this week.
Hi, this is Alyssa Mumford from Smithfield, Utah. I just wanted to say how much I have enjoyed listening to both seasons of Cold and how amazing the in-depth reporting is. There's so much information, and I think you guys have just done such a good job. I've really enjoyed the second season's Talking Cold, the discussions about the episodes, and I wonder if maybe you would be willing to go back to season 1 and have discussions about each episode in season 1. Thank you so much, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Alyssa, for that suggestion. We're going to take that under advisement, and we will let you know if we're going to go back and do a Talking Cold season for season 1. And thank you for reaching out to us. We definitely want to continue hearing from you. We're interested in any questions, comments that you have for Dave or for us. You can reach us at 801-575-4399. Leave us a voicemail with your reaction to the latest episode of Cold or Talking Cold, and we may play it on the show. Bonus material for Cold can be found at thecoldpodcast.com. Don't forget to listen to Cold for free at amazon.com/coldpodcast. And please tell your friends to do the same. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, I'm Dan Patrick, host of That Scene with Dan Patrick, an Amazon original podcast where I talk to Hollywood's top actors about some of the most iconic scenes that have defined their careers. To go behind the scenes of your favorite movie moments for free, just go to amazon.com/thatscene.